Sydney has been battered by torrential rain and gale force winds in a downpour not seen in this city for over 20 years. Power has been cut and transport impacted from Katoomba to Kurnell, and the wild weather isn't over yet.
Sydney hit hard, a tree crushing a taxi on Bridge Street, the driver stretchered away. One of dozens of rescues across the city and suburbs. The SES freeing a trapped driver at Milperra, police helping this man to safety at Chatswood.
People are clearly not hearing or adhering to those messages. Do not drive into swollen water areas across roadways.
This car had to be abandoned near Penrith.
Some poor gentleman drove through it in his wife's car.
You wouldn't walk into a bushfire, so why would you drive through floodwaters?
Others left on the side of the road at Wentworth Point, where waterfront took on a whole new meaning.
It's like price upgrade, you know, we're now like Waterview now.
The road in looked more like a river, the suburb swamped. Rescues on the water as well, a boatie on the Hawkesbury getting into trouble. The Windsor and Richmond bridges closed.
I've just driven an hour to get here because the bridge was open.
Yep.
And now, where am I meant to go?
A floating house breaking free from its mooring at Palm Beach. Rapids formed on the Parramatta River, overflowing onto walkways. A torrent surging through the ferry terminal. Worryingly, the rain is not letting up. It is intensifying, and as incredible as some of the scenes have been today, the worst could still be.
Apocalyptic images coming out of Australia right now.
There are now 6 fires burning at emergency levels.
The smoke is so intense and so thick it can be seen from space.
2,000 homes have been destroyed.
6 million hectares of land charred.
A staggering toll on the nation's wildlife.
This is just heartbreaking.
These record-breaking bushfires in Australia have been kicked off by things like lightning strikes, a few cases of arson, and winds. But one of the biggest reasons they've become so extreme is the same reason that East Africa is flooding.
The Tahal eruption has turned this part of Talisai into a ghost town. Population normally in the thousands, it's now deserted. Its residents only allowed to come back a few hours each morning to collect belongings and start the daunting task of trying to fix up their homes. Darila Tanguilig shows us the thickness of the layer of debris left behind by the eruption. With his children, the first priority is making their home livable again before even thinking of restarting the family business.
Naiiyak ako, malungkot.
It's depressing, I want to cry. It'll take such a long time for us to recover. It makes you lose hope.
The town is just 5 kilometers from the volcano, and boats from here used to take tourists on day trips to the island. The volcano erupted, the prevailing winds pushed the plume of ash and dust in this direction, completely covering towns like this one and forcing its residents to flee to safety. Well over 50,000 people are still sheltering in evacuation centres around this province. Many towns like this one are allowing residents back for short periods. But by 10 a.m, it's time for people to leave again, and the police roadblocks are back in place. Those displaced are being supported by relief supplies, but what they really want is to know when they can return to their homes permanently.
Overflowing onto walkways, a torrent surging through the ferry terminal. Worryingly, the rain is not letting up. It is intensifying, and as incredible as some of the scenes have been today, the worst could still be to come. The swollen Cooks River inundating parks at Marrickville, waterfalls flowing upside down at Cape Solander in Kurnell. Countless trees down, power lines too, sparks flying at Beverly Hills. Traffic lights out, gridlocked roads, drivers with no choice but to go slow. 2 got bogged trying to get around fallen trees at Terry Hills. RFS crews working to clear blocked drains as the water kept rising. Trains delayed as water crossed the tracks, including at Bardwell Park and at Collaroy. This morning's king tide smashed the coast. The big swell and ferocious wind, all too familiar for those who lived through the catastrophic 2016 storm.
Yeah, it is close. Again, it gets a bit scary when it's like this.
There has been some work done here to protect these homes since the 2016 event, and conditions at the moment aren't quite as bad as they were back then, but understandably, residents along here right now are very nervous.
The roof next door is all coming off. It's been absolutely crazy. It's pretty terrifying, actually.
Big waves closing beaches. Not enough to put off these surfers at Balmoral and Vaucluse, the harbour like a washing machine. This video taken on the last Manly ferry before services were cancelled. Tens of thousands of homes are without power, the SES responding to thousands of calls for help. It didn't stop some from revelling in the rain, sporting fields becoming water parks, while others preferred to seek shelter and avoid the not-so-great outdoors.
And Alex Hart has moved to Lura for us tonight. Alex, there have been some major landslides.
Yes, Mark, what happened here happened at around about 2 o'clock this afternoon. You can see up behind me there some train lines that are suspended. That is where the land has given way, and just an enormous amount of mud and concrete and trees and debris has come swarming down here, crashing into the backyard of this property. The residents not home at this house, but the people in the house in front, they heard this. They said it sounded like a huge thunder crack as it came rumbling towards them. They thought their house could actually be washed away.
高烧39度4天，然后在我们医院看发热门诊那一刻，开药没有药，下来退卡发脾气。你看摘下口罩咳嗽呢，故意对着里面咳嗽。哇，这种事是不是应该报警呢？
把修堂俺门呢，就像封死的了呢，你给他喊死的了。我也不知道，那不真的在那个，修堂俺就被哪个的外来个他妈在谁的？哪找？医院，新人民医院。等等吧。不进医院啊？好。走。 你有咳嗽，你从哪儿过来？你在哪儿呢？我好的。你快呀！你这会儿你吃饭，你口音我都不拉你。干嘛？ 去过武汉？啊？啊？刚回来。啊？我刚从那儿回来，我现在去医院。你干啥？不动，我干啥？快点，干啥？你要打110吗？中不中？你打110，我不打110可能中。 打110不了，打110吗？
China is on a war footing. Unverified video on social media shows streets in Wuhan, where the virus originated, being sprayed with disinfectant. But questions linger over how China's government is dealing with this invisible enemy. Few countries can marshal the resources now at China's disposal, and that's the thrust of the narrative on state-controlled television. But hospitals are swamped with an acute shortage of beds. Gymnasiums and sports stadiums have been turned into temporary medical centres to cope with demand. On Thursday, the death toll reached 565. The latest infections included a newborn baby. But China's government says the number of virus victims who are recovering is also increasing. Here in Hong Kong, the fear of catching this virus appears to be more contagious than the virus itself. On Thursday morning, there were reports of panic buying in some local supermarkets, with shelves being cleared of rice and other staples, forcing the Hong Kong government to say, there's no need to worry, there's plenty of food. But there are not plenty of face masks. Those that are on sale cost 3 times what they did before the crisis began. People we spoke to don't understand why the government isn't providing them for free.
There are many poor people, they have to queue up to buy the mask, and I think the government should do more on that to solve the problem.
They are not doing enough because they did not plan ahead to purchase the mask for the citizens. Yeah, so now the prices for the mask is like going up.
The day after the Hong Kong government announced it would soon begin isolating all arrivals from the mainland, it remains unclear how that will happen. The 2 options appear to be self-isolation or being placed in holiday camps converted to quarantine centres.
Is dead. 5 weeks ago, on the 30th of December, he noticed a virus similar to SARS, a killer Chinese virus from 2 decades ago. He posted a warning on a Weibo group for fellow doctors. 3 days later, the 3rd of January, he was reprimanded by officials and forced to sign an apology. Wuhan shut down its food and wildlife market, the origin of the virus, on the same day, but then officials delayed a citywide lockdown and the virus spread. Weeks later, the city announced the virus and the official lockdown came. According to statistics, that was too late. The virus is now rapidly spreading through China, although it's stabilized in other countries. And the virus is killing people. Dr. Li, one of many. In life, he sparked a national conversation about freedom of speech in China, and in death, he's become a national hero.